What is going on, Busy Bariatrics? I'm Rob, your favorite VSG man turned bariatric coach, here to help you stop white-knuckling your way through chicken, broccoli, and diet air meal plans, ditch the burn boot camps that leave you sweaty but still stuck, and finally fix the habits, patterns, and behaviors that got you here in the first place. Today, we're talking about a classic enemy of progress in your bariatric journey. That's right, late night cravings. You know that magical hour when your stomach says we're starving, even though you hit your protein goals and your brain knows darn well that you were just bored, tired, or emotionally stir-fried. And to help us dig into the science, psychology, and straight up real talk behind late night eating, I've got Dana White from You First Nutrition joining us. Dana's a registered dietitian who specializes in helping bariatric patients get off the blood sugar roller coaster and stop mistaking emotional hunger for physical hunger. Dana, welcome so much to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Excited to talk about this.
Yeah, so tell us, how did you become a registered dietitian and why do late night cravings kind of happen? Because this is kind of the best wheelhouse for you.
My gosh, I love it. Well, yeah, no, I've been a dietitian for about 20 years now, although I don't feel that old most of the time.
So you started at 5, so totally get it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I've always worked in weight management, whether it was, weight loss programs or clinical weight management or outpatient nutrition counseling. I've always been sort of in the weight management space. And I've always been interested in nutrition. I was an athlete. I played a lot of sports when I was younger, and I sort of started to notice that it mattered what I ate. So I sort of followed that path, but I became really interested in helping people feel better and live their best life. The time that I spent in the bariatric clinic was probably like what I look upon as my best career move. I spent 15 years in a bariatric clinic center of excellence just outside of Chicago. I worked alongside the surgeons and the nurses and the whole care team, trained the other dietitians in the complexities of bariatric nutrition, because it's a journey unlike any other. Literally. I mean, it's emotional. It's full of hope. There's ups and downs, but triumphs. And I just knew that this is what was for me. I had a client come back one time after, losing a significant amount of weight. And she was like, I finally feel who I am supposed to be. And I'm like, wow, that type of stuff gives you goosebumps, like changing lives. It's amazing.
Yeah. I always say like the registered dietitians like unlock so much more than even the trainers. And it's why I feel it's so important to showcase all of you on the podcast. Well, yeah, because I think everyone, especially if you're like my age, you've been understood or conditioned to think like, oh, if I just work out more, I'll burn more calories and that'll keep us down. And I really do believe that it's the nutrition that drives that needle, whether it be body composition, weight loss, fat loss. And for so many of us, if you're of a certain age, you think like things like carbs are the enemy, or even eating at night is a terrible thing, or even the idea of like, look, I am perfectly good. I have the tracker of a saint from like a.m. until about 6:30 p.m. And then all of a sudden the witching hour comes out.
Yes. Nighttime is so unique. I feel like we all have those really busy days, and there's a rush and the rush and the rush. And then finally you get to the evening where you can finally relax, and it's like a stress reliever. You're trying to wind down. And so, that brings sometimes emotions because there's finally some quiet, and sometimes emotions, as we all know, can be things that kind of, trigger us to eat, like the comfort food type of side of things. But I also think that there's a lot of habits in the nighttime. Builds habits for the good or the bad. And so if every night when you watch a show, maybe you're like watching Netflix, going to watch the next episode, and you're like, let's grab a snack, right? It becomes your new habit. And we do that over many years. And so then let's say you're on a bariatric journey and you're trying to go in a different direction. Well, now when you still watch TV, you still want snacks. It's hard to break.
Repetition builds habits is such an important way to look at it. And I think it's where with registered dietitians and what we talk about is this idea of like, what are the rituals we have around food and how do we kind of rebuild those, especially after bariatric surgery? Because I think that really is one of the best parts of weight loss surgery is it really does give your body a chance to reset all those habits, patterns, behaviors, and rebuild them. Before we get into all the fun stuff, from a science perspective, I know leptin and ghrelin play a big role, but why do we always seem to be so hungry at night, either scientifically or psychologically? for all of it?
There's so many reasons. I mean, from a scientific standpoint, ghrelin rises throughout the day. That's your hunger hormone. And, I think it's, biologically, we are just kind of, I guess we want to like find food before it becomes nighttime, right? I mean, these are all like old things that are still around with us, although it's not really applicable in today's modern life. But hunger hormones play a big role. And right after surgery, you remember this time probably where you did not feel hungry. Like you felt in control. You felt not hungry. You felt satisfied with these small portions. And a lot of people after bariatric surgery remember that, and even in that early phase, probably the first 6 months, you get to that evening time and you feel like, I have way more control than I've ever had in my whole life at this time, But as time goes on, some of that hunger comes back. Those hormones, come around again. From a scientific standpoint, what it is, GLP-1 and peptide YY are hunger hormones. And those are more elevated earlier in the journey. And then also ghrelin is down regulated. So you do feel just more satisfied overall. There's less hunger. But that gradually comes back. And so it's so important to figure out what we need to do early in the journey if we can. But at any point, we need to figure it out. How are we going to control hunger in the best way that we can? And there's a lot of strategies.
And I love that you have all of that. There's twofold is, I always say ghrelin. Is it ghrelin? Have I been wrong?
I say ghrelin. It reminds me of a gremlin, a ghrelin gremlin. Thing
Ghrelin,
causing
well,
more
ghrelin,
hunger.
gremlin, it's such a good way to put it. And I think for so many bariatric patients, as they get further out, I remember the days because prior to weight loss surgery, I was the person who would even wake up in the middle of the night, like not just I'm having a snack before I go to bed, but I'd wake up like 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning and I would be like, you know what? The pantry's kind of on the same floor as where our bedroom is.
Yeah.
So it's like you just go in, grab something, and then go back to bed. And after weight loss surgery, I was like, oh, I finally fixed myself. I don't have that anymore. And around like 18 months,
Yeah.
I'd say it started to come back. And I realized like I have to put some like patterns around this or some habits that kind of helped me. But I think it's very common when you talk to other bariatric patients, everyone, the first year, they're like, oh my goodness, I no longer have late night urges, no longer like eat in the middle of the night. And those do come back as I think ghrelin increases a bit and we get further out. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a failure. It just means that now we have to redo the work and rebuild the lifestyle.
Absolutely. And sometimes, sometimes habits can fade. You're really motivated early on. And so sometimes as time goes on, you let go of a few things. So sometimes you have to bring those back, and as far as strategies go for like, how can we make the evening time easier? I kind of look at it in 2 different categories and I have an order in which I look at this and I recommend to work on it because I think when you can accomplish one thing, it makes the other thing so much easier. So the first thing is making sure that you're meeting your biological needs. And I think that is critical. And I think, especially after bariatric surgery, sometimes these things are not always where they need to be. So the first thing is, number 1, and this is the big overarching one, is you have
I'm so excited.
Have to get enough sleep. It is huge, Sleep is like our number 1. We need 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night as active adults. And it is hard when there's really good shows on. You don't want to always get yourself to bed. And if you have early wake up times, it's like, wow, those hours are just not adding up. And then the quality of sleep is the other issue too. So if you're having issues staying asleep or falling asleep, definitely reach out to your doctor. We want to solve the sleep issue because if you don't get enough sleep, there is an entire cascade of events that occur that are all not good. Your hunger increases, your fullness, like satiety goes down. Even one poor night of sleep can reduce insulin sensitivity by 25%, which makes you even more of a blood sugar roller coaster, energy up and down, cravings up and down all day. And then you also just don't have the oomph to make tough decisions. And so sleep is really critical. So I always start that. I'm always asking people, how are you doing with sleep? How many hours do you get a night? It's really surprising what you hear sometimes.
It really is sleep and stress in so many senses. And just if anyone's been around a toddler, I think that's the best example of why sleep is important because they scream for chicken nuggets, they get frustrated. And a lot of the times I think when we are sleepy, we almost have that hunger cue spike up. And it's almost like I don't have the decision capability in me.
Yeah.
After a long day, I'm kind of shot where If
Totally.
someone's like, hey, do you want to get Chick-fil-A or do you want to go home and cook a sensible meal? I'm like, absolutely, Chick-fil-A sounds
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Like, because
Totally.
decision fatigue is real.
It is. And, if you're tired, and you're like standing in the pantry and it's 9 or 10 o'clock at night, your solution is only one thing. You just got to go to bed. It's just go to bed, because sometimes we snack to like stimulate our brains to stay awake. And that's really not what we want to do. We actually need to get rest. And I think that if we can start to kind of like make those decisions, like calculate the amount of time that I need to like get 8 hours or at least 7, what time do I need to go up and start to like wind down, like get my pajamas on and get ready for bed. It starts earlier than you probably think.
I think a book that was popular when my kids were young, it's like an adult children's book of Go the Blank to Sleep. I almost feel like we need a bariatric version of it.
Exactly.
But like, it's almost the reminder for adults of there's so many times I'm sitting in the pantry and I'm just like, it's 9:30. I know I'm exhausted. I know that I just have to shut the door. And I don't think we give enough credit from a social emotional aspect or a psychological aspect of that's a major NSV is something as simple as like I shut the pantry door and put myself to sleep. But it's also not very Instagram worthy to show like, yep, solid 9 hours of sleep. Let's put the
Right.
progress pick up.
I know, exactly. I agree. It is like a huge NSV. Anytime that you go in a different direction than your usual habit or your usual pattern, it is a big deal, because that first time is the hardest one. Hardest one. And then the next night that you do it, it becomes a smidge easier and a little easier. And over time, you can do it more that it doesn't feel so hard. So I agree. We need that book. Maybe you'll write
Yeah. You know what? I think that's probably the best way I could write a book, because I feel like I'm too verbose, but if I only had like 6 words per page in a 12-page thing, I'd eventually get it right. But
Love it.
yeah. Going back to what you said though, I think when clients are like, I need to start working out at 5 a.m., I have to really stress them like, then you need to go to bed by like 9. Like
I
your
know.
9 to 5 has to be sleep more than anything
So
else.
hard. It's so
But
hard.
yeah,
Yeah, I get
but
it.
even
I have
getting up
a
that early,
13-year-old and she wants to stay she wants to stay up longer than I want to stay up. I'm like, we just all got to go to bed. All right, the house is shutting down.
I have quit. I am very lucky. My 13-year-old is a type A house cat.
Okay.
So she will get everything done, but then I get to the point where I'm like, look, it's 9:30. I'm going to be up well before you. And she's like, okay, I'll shut everything down. And she just like
I love
does
that.
her thing. So
Work
yeah.
towards it. But yeah, gosh, sleep is important. So we put that one on the top of the list. The next thing, and these are all like in this category of meeting your body's biological needs, by the way. Okay, so we need to make sure your body has what it needs to calm down the hunger and calm down the cravings. So that way, when you get to the evening time, it becomes easier. And so on this list, and we'll go through them. Number 1 was sleep, we talked about. Number 2 is getting enough protein. Number 3 is eating enough during the day. Number 4 is staying hydrated, because that one is so hard for all of us, but especially after bariatric surgery. And then we'll give an honorable mention to controlling your blood sugars. We can talk about these briefly, but can you imagine if you were really tired, didn't get your protein in, underhydrated, blood sugar swinging all over the place, and then you try to choose a cheese stick instead of nachos at night? It's like,
Hard pass.
that game is already over. So we got to work on the things that we need to do to keep our bodies feeling good, Yeah.
It's funny because I think a lot of the time, especially in the last year or two, as food noise has started to become like the term in the bariatric community, and I
Really.
believe in food noise,
Oh, yeah.
but I also think like, here's my hot take. If you're after like your first year or two of bariatric surgery and you're eating 1,200 calories, you don't have food noise. You have actual hunger.
It could be hunger.
For
Yeah.
most body types, like if you're a 5'11",
Yeah.
220-pound male,
Yeah.
and you're eating 1,200 calories, like that's not food noise, buddy. That is like your body probably needs a little bit more of a caloric range
Right.
to get.
That's your body screaming for some fuel there. I think you're right. Absolutely. And, I think sometimes, especially in bariatrics, especially as you've lost weight and you are like now really desperate to keep this off, you're like, I am keeping this off. A lot of the times you start the day and you're like, I'm going to just eat light. This is going to be one of those lower calorie days or whatever. And so you might have a coffee in the morning. You might not even have a snack. You have something quick at lunch, like a Greek yogurt. And then like by the time you know it, Well, no wonder you have a lot of hunger at night because you have not eaten during the day and you probably have not gotten enough protein. So we really have to examine and ask, is it a nighttime problem at that point or is it a daytime problem? We need to solve the daytime problem, which is eating more frequently and eating enough that you're satisfied.
I found for so many of my clients, just doubling their protein goal with whole foods for breakfast
Yeah,
almost is a game changer.
huge.
So it's something as simple as like have an egg and then incorporate egg whites with it. Have some carbs as well, like some air fried potatoes, some Canadian bacon. Like ballpark for me, it's like I hit about 40 grams of protein every morning for that breakfast.
There
And
you
that
go.
really did, yeah, it really did solve my problem of prior to like fixing my breakfast routine. It was that coffee in the morning. I'm going to have like a salad, a moderate salad for
Right.
lunch. And then dinner is going to be like this bariatric baby plate portion. And then there was no surprise when I'd eat half a bag of Doritos in the pantry at night because my body's just, I'm not hitting my numbers.
Totally. And there's so many changes too. Like early in the journey, that's probably fine. And there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
coffees. It's very beloved in our bariatric community, right? But like,
Time and
yeah,
place and reason and season. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Because portions increase, and especially as you become more active, you're going to need to have a little bit more. So that's why it's important to like readjust your eating plan. Like you need to kind of go with what's going on now versus what was going on earlier. It's you have a new body, it's a new situation. The game changed a little bit. So yeah, I mean, 40 grams of protein, you stimulate your muscle protein synthesis, and you're good to go from the start, Rob. There you go.
Right off the rip. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's kind of interesting because you're right. At reason and season, like early on, that diet absolutely worked for me and it helped me
yeah,
maintain great weight loss.
yeah,
But I think as you get further out and you start to develop and move, what got you to here won't necessarily get you to there.
yes.
And the problem I see a lot of bariatric patients dealing with is they almost double down on what worked because psychologically it makes sense. So it's almost when they stall or plateau, it's like, okay, well, I'm eating 1,200 calories. Let me see if I can drop it down to 6. And it's almost like, ooh, like we're getting to a danger. 12 is almost the danger zone, but
Oh yeah. I mean, we're depending on what you're doing, but yeah, totally agree. And then what happens is when you're not fully satisfied, whether it's nighttime or not, cravings can come around and it can lead us down the grazing path. And the grazing path is probably our most detrimental path. We do not want to be on that path because
that's a thousand paper cuts. Yeah.
oh gosh, I mean, you can just eat a lot of what we would call slider foods, right? Things that go down
Hmm.
really easy, that never fill you up, but then put you on that blood sugar roller coaster, make you want more carbohydrates, and all of a sudden you feel like you can't stop. That happens a lot at night. That can happen in the afternoon, that 3 o'clock time where we all kind of feel like we need a coffee or something, you know? Sometimes it's snacks. And so we got to have a plan for those times.
Yeah, so it's funny because I have so many people I meet in the community who say, like, I don't really eat much, but then it's kind of that grazing of death by a thousand paper cuts of it's a
Right?
handful of Cheetos here, it's a chicken nugget off our child's plate here, and
Yeah.
it's very common, I think, that when people are like, "Oh, like I don't know why I'm losing weight, and their tracker kind of looks perfect. It's like, well, are we incorporating all these bite, licks, and taste? How do you kind of help clients understand or eliminate grazing or move to something that kind of gets rid of that blood sugar roller coaster?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really great question. I mean, I think it's really important to make sure that you talk to them about their day. Like, where is this
Mhm.
happening? Does this happen at the
Yeah.
3 o'clock time? Is this nighttime? When is it happening? And then we have to make sure that the meals that they're having in the day, like you shared your breakfast, which was great, and then making sure that there's a good substantial lunch that's not just a yogurt or feels like a snack, like eat enough. We have to eat enough protein. And when we do, we feel more satisfied and you can go a longer period of time without feeling like you need something, you know? So I think that is really key is redefining protein goals, spacing it out throughout the day, making sure that you have foods that you like and foods that are filling you up. So that way you don't graze. The reasons we graze would probably be because you're not eating enough at meal times or it's emotional, you're bored, or you're kind of need to focus on this task, you know? So then we have to talk about like, else should you do, you know? Like sometimes it's, you know, you're working on something hard at work and you're just like, man, I could use something crunchy. Oh, okay. So what could we do instead? We know we're not hungry. We know that crunchy snack is not going to really help us. get to where we want to go. So it's like, okay, I need to get up. I need to just take a walk. I need a breather. I need to grab some water. I just need to take a break and kind of sit back down and refocus. Something along those, but those are some of the things that we can do.
It's kind of the double-edged sword of, I feel like a lot of the times for people who are working throughout the day, you're either over or understimulated, and both cause issues in your hunger cue.
That's true.
Which is like, I think the biggest goal for anyone in life is to be properly stimulated. Like,
Yeah,
that
don't
might
we
have
just get
to
the
be,
right amount?
like, I wish there was like a better gauge of how stimulated you should be, if that makes sense. But like, I don't know if they have that test yet.
Right. It's either like I'm totally overwhelmed and can't even think straight, or I'm feeling a little bored. And now both lead you to want to snack on something, probably.
Exactly. So when we identify like that time in the day and we're
Yeah.
saying like, Dana, I just want Cheetos, like it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I just want Cheetos, how do we kind of lean into either the Cheetos, or what recommendations do you have?
I know. Well, it's making sure you had a good lunch, number
Yes.
one. And then when it comes to that hard time, like, do we need a snack? We might need a snack. And so what could that be? Let's bring something. Let's bring something that you like. If you want something crunchy, maybe it's Parmesan crisps, those little crunchy wisp things. Or maybe it's a cheese stick. Maybe it's a protein plate. Maybe it's you want something sweet. So you can do Greek yogurt and throw some like Catalina Crunch in there or something. We can find snacks that are good, or sometimes it's just like we're leftovers. Like nothing like, having your lunch. And if there's some left over, have the rest at that 3 o'clock time. That protein can be really filling. So I think it's like coming up with like really good snacks that you like, or maybe it's working through like some of those emotions. What do you really need? Sometimes you have to get curious about that.
It's a really good reflective question of what is it you're really looking for in there.
Yeah.
And there's so many different ways that you could go. Sometimes it is like, I do want the Parmesan crisps, or sometimes it is like, I've really had a difficult day by 3 o'clock and I need something. Or going back to what we talked about before, it could just be the habit of, before I pick my kids up, I run through the drive-through and I grab like a little snack of something. um, it's why I really love that you talk about like, what does a client's day look like? And I
Yeah.
think that is where the real work of registered dietitians and professionals come in. Is it's very easy to just give that like blanket, do this and then that will happen. And it's like, well, does that work for a mom with 7 kids the same way it does like an executive who's running a business? And the answer is no, if only because there's different emotional bonds and connections, just like
Right.
someone who's in the Chicago area might have a different day than like a Philly person because of just the weather or what goes on.
Totally. The weather is a big deal. I feel like when it's rainy and cold, it's like, oh man,
Soup season.
change it down. That's why we moved to Phoenix.
It's by far, yeah, Phoenix is like a dream for me. I have to say, like on a side note, like if if I ever make the real money, like the big money, first sign it will be I'll like move to Phoenix, if only because,
Chicago.
as I know, warm during the winter months, which at this point after bariatric surgery, like I cannot do cold anymore.
Oh yeah.
But two, West Coast football for me is like my guiltiest pleasure of like, oh, these games start at like 10 and like Sunday night football is done by 7:30, which is phenomenal.
That is phenomenal. East Coast is so hard, right? And you're talking about getting enough sleep. It's like when the games start earlier, that's really helpful.
It's funny, I'm a diehard Eagles fan,
Okay.
and the problem with their success is they get more primetime games every year.
Okay, right.
And I just can't do it. Like I just cannot make it to the end of the game. So I'm always rooting for them to either blow out the other team or get blown out. If
Right.
only so that like by halftime I can be like, okay, I've seen enough and I can
Yeah,
go to
like
bed.
I watched half and now I'm like, know the outcome pretty much. Yeah.
It's kind of like, but going back to like late night grazing patterns, where
Yeah.
before I'd wake up in the middle of the night and do that, I now just do late night sports updates. So instead of going to the pantry, I will go and be like, Alexa, what's the score of the Eagles game? Or who won the Phillies game last night? And I'll get the score. And I'm like, okay, that's my dopamine hit. Now let me go right back to bed and
Yes.
kind of hit it that.
See, but that's your new habit. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's, but I think that's always like the way I like to coach it and teach it to clients as well.
Yeah.
Is I don't think it has to be like this big profound rehaul of everything. It just
Right.
has to be like, what is that little pleasure seeking that you could have in that point that gets it?
Right. Totally. Absolutely. And as we're talking about like some of these biological needs to meet, like it's like getting enough sleep, getting enough protein, eating satisfying meals, also drinking enough water. I mean, that's another big one too. Like, making sure that you're fully hydrated. I mean, we always joke, I think, in the bariatric community about how everyone drinks lots of coffees, but maybe the water is on a little short end, but just being like 1 to 2% down in your hydration status will affect everything. I mean, your workouts, your mood, your cognition. So we want to make sure
Your
people are fully
stool, literally,
yeah,
like
right. You're not going to be happy in the bathroom if you don't get your fluids in either, right? Yeah.
it's funny because I always go there because when constipation comes up, it's like the first, like, are you hitting your water goal? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, start there.
Yeah.
And it's again, it's the unsexy. I always say, 9 out of 10 times, just hitting your water goal will probably at least give one calibration that you need through things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that if we can work on those things, easier said than done, but little by little, right? And you can then come to that evening time that might be a really big challenge, ready, more ready, rested and fueled and hydrated. And then you can take on like those behavior change tasks. It's easier to make like new habits or go in different directions. So I think that that's the next thing to talk about, like how do you do that stuff? And I think that's, sometimes where people can work with like a counselor or a therapist is very helpful because, we can be interesting creatures. We can know what to do, but why do we do the things we do? We don't know. These are good things to explore, but we can talk about some strategies if you want. Let me turn my page.
I would be thrilled to death if we could get in.
No, I mean, the first one, and I think you probably have done this, and it sounds like you have, is like try to control your environment. It's like, if you can. I mean, it's not easy when you live with others and you have a spouse and you have kids, and sometimes there's just foods in there that are just tempting to you. But if you can develop some sort of way that, well, you can chat with your family and say, hey, these foods are really hard for me right now. I'm kind of in this like fragile moment, maybe later on will be a little easier, but right now it's a little bit fragile as I'm trying to make changes. Like, can we just maybe keep these in the back of the cabinet? Can we put these out of sight, out of mind? Because if the cookies are sitting in the middle of the kitchen island, every time I walk by, it's like, man, every time willpower is fleeting. It's not easy to walk by that stuff.
I am comical because the other three housemates that I have all read food out. And it's something that I just really spend a lot of time like picking up and putting in the microwave because I can't see into the microwave.
That makes
So
sense.
I just shove plates in the microwave till the end of the night, and the kids kind of know. I'm like, oh, it's in the microwave. So it's like they just grab it and go
Kind of a
from there.
surprise. You open it. What's in here?
There have been there may have been some days where I've had some adult beverages, and I put things in the microwave, and then I wake up the next morning. I'm like, oh, I got like a little second breakfast here of all these fun foods that I didn't eat or showed restraint for.
Too funny, but you gotta stay out of mind in there. You can't see through that. You don't think to look in there sometimes either.
Absolutely,
So yeah,
absolutely.
you can control that. That's the start. We don't want to fight the battles in our own home if we don't have to. There's enough battles to fight, So that is big. And then, when it comes to like behavior modification and, when I think about the evening time, I do think of like quiet and sometimes emotions. And emotions are a big deal. And this is where a therapist and a counselor can really help. But, if you do have some of those emotions that come in that you're stressed or you're feeling sad or you're feeling lonely or you're tired or bored or whatever it is, and you find yourself standing in front of the pantry and you're like finding what do I eat, rummaging around, that is that urge or desire. And if you can take a pause, just take a second and the longer you can take, at first it might just be a microsecond that you take a
Mhm.
pause and think about something. And the longer you can make that pause, the more you can talk to yourself and get curious and ask yourself, what is going on? What is it that I need right now? And you just have to be really honest with yourself. I'm bored or I'm tired or, I'm feeling a certain way. And when you can identify what it is, sometimes you can have a better like response to that emotion that is not really food related because it's not going to really help it at all. It might feel like it does in the moment. It's kind of like instant gratification, that like soothing feeling, but it doesn't help in the end, the long run. You still are probably with that emotion. So then you can decide, what can I do instead? But the longer that we can grow that pause, the better chance we have to go in a different direction.
Yeah, something we work with clients on a lot is just plating and pausing. And it's why, like, I don't necessarily think you need to track for life. But
Yeah.
even with late night grazing, not even from the macro or the caloric standpoint, but just reviewing your day of like, okay, what did I eat today that I'm hungry? And it could be like, no, I had a full breakfast. I had an amazing lunch. I really liked my dinner, and be like, well, I had 3 really fulfilling meals. Am I really physically hungry or emotionally hungry? And sometimes that pause allows me to just have it. And if it's physically hungry, that's okay too.
Yeah.
But even just putting it on a plate and measuring out a portion, because when we're in front of the pantry, um, I never realized how quickly my hand can grab Doritos and just start the flywheel going. But if I'm like, okay, I measured out a thing of Doritos, I'm going to wrap up the bag, I'm going to put it back in the pantry, I'm going to shut the door, and then I'm going to take the Doritos and sit in front of the TV and watch.
Yeah.
Now makes me do just a little bit more friction before I get another serving of Doritos.
I love that. I think that that's really smart. Absolutely. And it really separates like what we might just do kind of automatically, like it's just a habit that we
Oh,
do,
yeah.
and it turns it into intention, or it's got more purpose behind it. And I think, sometimes eating at night is not always a bad thing. You might be hungry, and so you might go grab something, and you might even be Doritos. It just depends on what's going on and the person and their goals that they have. But if you're putting those on a plate and you're enjoying them and it is intentional, then that is different than feeling out of control or feeling like it's a problem or something like that.
Absolutely. There's days where it's either client calls or I'm shuttling my kids or we just had a long day and it's like, oh, it's 8 o'clock and I haven't eaten yet. But
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I'm still going to have a whole meal of food because
Right.
I haven't technically eaten since maybe 3. So it's been a
Yeah.
5-hour window for
Yeah. And with kids and sports and stuff, it's like, who knows
never
what
end.
time dinner is anymore?
It's why our household is like fully in the like, we're not even trying anymore. And I say it in the best way possible of like, we always have a Costco rotisserie chicken somewhere in our fridge because you can just kind of shred and do whatever.
So smart. The
But
easiest thing.
oh yeah, but even their pre-made meals, like our no cook cookbook that we give the clients and that's
Yeah.
on our Instagram stories, it's all things that you can get at Sam's Club, Costco, and just literally toss in a pan, heat it,
Yeah.
and then serve it, and then even scan it if you're doing nutrition and macro
Yeah.
calculating. It's yeah, September and May, and then during busy dance and gymnastic season for my girls, it's I don't have time to make this Instagram or Pinterest worthy meal. It's I need food that'll work right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I post all the time about like Kevin's meals. They save my
Yeah.
life at least once a week. Rotisserie chickens, Amy Lou meatballs, and chicken patties. I mean, those things are great protein sources. They're ready to go. It's like you are smart if you can just stock those things up, because you're not going to be able to like make something from scratch every night. It's not realistic for most people.
And going back to exactly what we started the episode with and what you started with is decision fatigue is real
Yeah.
and your bandwidth and capacity plays a big role.
Yeah.
For a lot of the times, like we should probably see if Kevin's or Amy Lou can like pay us to do this content.
Exactly.
Both of, both of them I think are really important because the macros from a nutrition standpoint, I always look at them like that's actually like right in ballpark of a great protein source
Yeah.
that works. And more importantly, like my wife and kids like it. So the
Yeah.
benefit of like
Huge.
what's good for a bariatric patient and what's good for the family allows everyone to kind of have the same benefit.
Absolutely, because you don't want to feel like you're eating something totally different than everyone else, That doesn't always feel great. So yeah, if you can find those things, those are the magical things. You gotta keep those in stock.
And yeah, like going back to even that part of obviously in your first couple months after bariatric surgery, your diet is probably going to look different
Oh yeah.
than your children or whoever's in your house.
Yeah.
But as it goes on, I used to always stress like what's good for a bariatric patient is probably good for your other housemates. Like it's a
Yeah.
protein produce forward meal with
Yeah.
healthy sources of carbs, a rich, full, diverse plate, and some flavor.
Yeah.
So it's the better, I always stress, like the better we can get at cooking or finding grab and go options that fit our goals, you're going to eat for life. So mastering that more than even like the dumbbell splits and the squats and everything else that we coach, I'm always
Yeah.
like, no, this is why you need to kind of figure that part out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, such a good point. Yeah, you're eating for life, right? And the more that you can like remind yourself of that, I think that's really powerful because it's all about this lifestyle change. In order to live in a way that you've never lived before, you've got to do things that you've never done before. And it's probably going to be things like being on meal planning and going to the gym and exercising and drinking your water and thinking about like getting enough sleep. I mean, all of these things that we do sometimes, but if we could get it a little bit more dialed in, we could really feel really good. Yeah.
It's funny because I think it is like you get to these points where people think it needs to be this drastic change when in reality it's just these like micro tweaks here and
Yeah.
there that kind of make the biggest difference.
Which is just the best because it takes the pressure off of having it to be such a big deal. Like it doesn't have to be this overhaul. I mean, I think when you had bariatric surgery, it felt that way. And maybe that was a good thing, right? It kind of like reset you and kind of set you on this path where now you can like, make some different decisions. But as you go forward, it is about how is this going to work into my life? How can I have this stuff be a part of me without it like taking over? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dana, any other tips, tricks, techniques that we have to work on?
No, for the nighttime cravings. I mean, I really do think if you can set yourself up from a biological standpoint, that is going to be huge. Come into the nighttime rested and fueled and hydrated. Such a big deal. And then, get curious about what's going on at night. Is it emotional? Is it a habit? Do I need to go in a different direction? And if you can create that pause and think about what's going on, it can help you to have a different reaction or take a different action. And the more you take a different action, the easier it gets. Like we mentioned earlier, the first one is always the hardest. Like, I'm going to go take a walk, or I'm going to actually just go up to bed. Like, just closing that pantry door, walking upstairs, trying to get ready for bed. That was the hardest step. But now you've done it and it can become easier. And so hopefully that helps a little bit. There's a lot of tips out there, but you got to find really what works for you and really what's the issue. But that's what we can reflect on.
So true. Dana, if people have listened to this episode and they're like, this is exactly who I need to work with, this
Aw.
person gets it, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, well, the best way is probably on Instagram. I'm at bariatricdietitian.dana, so you can send me a message. No, but I appreciate it. I run one coaching program right now, the Bariatric Jumpstart program. It's for those in their first 2 years post-op. And I'm working on another program for those who are greater than 2 years post-op, which will be coming soon. But I just love supporting the bariatric community. I know that you do too, Rob. So it's just been really fun chatting with you since we hadn't really met before. So I love it.
Yeah, it's always nice when I get to connect and meet people who just get it, and also someone who I've admired from afar, where your content has always been very practical, which
Thank
is,
you.
I think, very important because I've always looked at it and been like, no, this is something I could absolutely do. So thank you for everything that
Thank
you
you.
do. And all right, Busy Bariatrics, here is your homework now that we're finishing up this episode. If your snacks have more screen time than you do steps, it's time to be honest. Tonight, log everything after dinner. Don't judge it, just see it. If you notice that you're not happy with what the numbers are, go back and listen to this episode and think about some of the techniques that Dana gave us that we could work on. And if this episode hit, it means that it's time to stop collecting awareness and start applying action. Don't just nod along, go prove to yourself that you're coachable, consistent, and capable. And hey, if this podcast helped you in any way, the best way to support the show without spending a dime is to leave a 5-star rating and review. It helps more bariatric patients find this no BS guidance, and it tells the algorithm we're done with the fluffy weight loss advice and ready for the real stuff. I'm Rob DeMedio. This is the Busy Bariatrics podcast. I swear I've been on this show before. And until next time, keep getting busy. Dana, thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob.
All right, bye.
Bye.